In this video, we will review safely changing the strings and cables from a tension crossbow, as well as installing strings and cables on a fully untensioned crossbow, as could be the case if a string breaks. Before you start this setup, make sure to wear your safety glasses. Make sure your crossbow is unloaded and uncocked. Never attempt to use a power tool, like a screwdriver or drill, to operate your cable tensioning screws. These devices operate at high speeds that risk damaging the screw by over-torquing or mistakenly backing the screws out of the cable anchor, which may cause accidental limb discharge, leading to severe injury and property damage. Only use a hand-operated Allen wrench or hand-operated ratchet hex to engage the tensioning screws. Next, we'll be reviewing the procedure for a string and cable change on a tension crossbow. First, remove the quiver by removing the 2 screws on the side of your crossbow. Next, remove the 2 fairings by removing the 8 screws with a 3/32 size hex key. Start by visually inspecting the cam ports on the side of each cam and their alignment to the ports within the frame. If the cam ports are not aligned to the frame ports, you will need to untension the cam tensioning screws. On the front cam, untension one cam anchor a quarter of the way down the tensioning screw by rotating the tensioning screw with a 9/64 hex manual key in the counterclockwise direction. Then do the same procedure on the other front cam. This process will lower the cam ports toward the frame ports. Repeat this process until the cam anchors just make contact with the cam. Stop rotating the tensioning screw when the anchor just makes contact with the cam, as further counterclockwise rotations risk releasing the cable anchor, resulting in serious injury and property damage. Visually inspect the side of the front cam ports to see if they are aligned with the port in the frame. If the front cam ports are not yet aligned with the front frame ports, untension the rear cam tensioning screws, alternating a few counterclockwise rotations on each rear cam tensioning screw, until the point that the front cam ports are aligned with the front frame port. Insert one cam pin, included in your toolkit, through the front cam port, through the frame ports and the opposite front cam port. Micro adjustments to the rear cam tension screws may be necessary to align all the front ports so that the pin can easily slide through all the ports. Check the pin fit by rotating the front pin within the ports to check for resistance. The pin will rotate easily when the ports are aligned. On the rear cams, rotate the cam tensioning screws counterclockwise on each cam, alternating between each cam to ensure the tension is balanced between each of the rear cams until all the rear ports are in alignment, and then insert the other pin through the rear ports. Stop rotating the tensioning screw when the anchor just makes contact with the cam, as further counterclockwise rotations risk releasing the cable anchor, resulting in serious injury and property damage. After both pins are secure, rotate the rear cam tensioning screws until the rear cam anchors just make contact with the cam. The bowstring should be free of tension at this point. Unhook the end of each bowstring loop from the bowstring hook, located on each of the rear pulleys. Take care to ensure the pulley cables stay within the cam grooves while unwrapping the old bowstring from the pulleys. If you only need to replace the bowstring, install the new bowstring in the same wrapping pattern. Install the new bowstring by attaching one of the served loops around one of the 2 string terminals on the rear pulleys. Wrapping the string from the outside to the inside, start with a small pulley on the front of the spreader. Then bring the string back and wrap around the rear pulley, and then back around the large pulley on the front of the spreader. Feed the bowstring end across the spreader and repeat this wrap pattern on the other side. A string wrapping guide is included in the instruction manual. At this point, we'll be discussing a cable and string change. Only use Lancehead authorized cables and strings, as they are designed specifically for the requirements of your crossbow. Never reserve old cables or use any other replacement cable other than a Lancehead authorized cable. Doing so will put you at risk of property damage or injury, including potential loss of life. First, remove the old cables from all the pulleys by unfastening the cable terminal screws on both the front pulley and the 2 rear pulleys. Use a 3/32 hex bit on a manual hex tool for this step, and never use a power tool, as it may strip or over-torque the screws. Be careful not to lose the cable terminal fastener spools. Never install a cable on the terminal fastener without inserting the spool, as the cable loops would quickly wear out against the bare threads of the fastener alone. Before attaching the unserved cable ends to the cable anchors, check to make sure the adjustable anchors are positioned at the extreme end of the channel within the cam, nearest the start of the cable groove that runs over the top of the cam. Do this for all 4 of the cable anchors. If the cable anchor needs to be repositioned, this can be accomplished by turning the cam tensioning screw. Reattach the front and rear pulley by attaching the unserved cable ends onto the cable anchors on each cam. Make sure that all strands of the unserved cable ends are within the anchor grooves and within the groove on the end of the cam. To do this, it may be necessary to adjust the anchor position by rotating the tensioning screw. Pull the cables around the cam grooves so the pulleys are back in their original position over the cams. No cable twists are necessary. Pulleys are in a correct position with the screw heads facing upwards. Unpackage the new bowstring and ensure twists are not added or untwisted. Doing so may result in difficulty in installing or impact performance. Install the new bowstring by attaching one loop end to one of the rear pulley bowstring hooks and following the diagram for proper pulley wrapping. Stop and visually inspect the string around each pulley to ensure all the strands of the bowstring are within the pulley U-grooves. Also, visually inspect all cables to ensure they are aligned within the cam grooves. With the string and cables all properly secured, with all strands neatly organized around the anchors, you may now begin to tighten the tensioning screws on the rear cam by rotating clockwise. Again, alternate tensioning each rear cam screw until the rear cam pin is able to easily twist within the cam ports. At this point, the rear cam pin is free to easily be removed by pulling straight out. With the rear cam pin out, begin to tighten the front cable tensioning screws by rotating them clockwise. Alternate tensioning each front cam screw until the front cam pin is able to easily twist within the cam ports. At this point, the front cam pin is free to easily be removed by pulling straight out, and the bow is in the initial pre-tension position. If additional pre-tension is desired, alternate tensioning each tension screw a quarter of the way up the tensioning screw until you reach the desired amount of pre-tension. Do not over-torque the anchors to extreme end of their tensioning capability. Doing so may damage the anchor or the tensioning screws, leading to property damage or severe injury, which could result in loss of life. The tensioning screws are designed to be tensioned to the point where the anchors just make contact to the end of the cam channel. In this part of the video, we'll be covering the procedure for stringing cable change on a fully untensioned crossbow. In the case where your crossbow is fully untensioned, as it would be if the string or cable were to break, you should first fully inspect your crossbow. Ensure that there are not any loose or damaged parts. If you find a damaged part, immediately replace the part, or for more extensive service, immediately contact Lancehead.com support. Do not attempt to restring a crossbow that has damaged parts. Doing so can risk further damage to the crossbow or severe injury, including loss of life. Next, remove the quiver and the two fairings as demonstrated in the prior portion of this video. Here's the crossbow that is ready for restringing and recabling. First, remove the old cables from all the pulleys by unfastening the cable terminal screws on both the front pulley and the two rear pulleys. Use a 3/32 hex bit on a manual hex tool for this step. Never use a power tool, as it may strip or over-torque the screws. Be careful not to lose the cable terminal fastener spools. Never install the cable on the terminal fastener without inserting the spool, as the cable loops would quickly wear out against the bare threads of the fastener alone. Replace the old cables with new ones by installing the fully served loop end. Only use Lancehead authorized cables, as they are designed specifically for the requirements of your crossbow. Never reserve old cables or use any other replacement cable other than a Lancehead authorized cable. Doing so will put you at risk of property damage, injury, including potential loss of life. Before replacing the cable anchors, check to make sure the adjustable anchors are positioned at the extreme end of the channel within the cam nearest the start of the cable grooves that runs over the top of the cam. Do this for all 4 cable anchors. With the new cables fully installed on all the anchors, locate the tuning string in your toolkit provided with your crossbow. It's yellow and red to distinguish it from a bowstring. Never attempt to use the tuning string to launch a bolt. It's not designed for this purpose. Next, we'll be installing the tuning string. Using a couple of rubber bands will help hold the pulleys in place during the stringing process, as seen here. Install the tuning string by attaching one of the red loops around one of the 2 string terminals on the rear pulleys. Wrapping the string from the outside to the inside, start with a small pulley on the front of the spreader. Then bring the string back and wrap around the rear pulley and then back around the large pulley on the front spreader. Feed the tuning string end across the spreader and repeat this wrap pattern on the other side. A string wrapping guide is included in the instruction manual. When the tuning string is installed, mount the cocking winch into the rear port but don't install the crank handle yet. Push the blue winch release switch up with one hand and pull out the winch cord by pulling the cocking sled over the scope mount. Fit the tuning string into the cocking hooks on the underside of the cocking sled. Slowly crank the handle of the cocking winch to draw tension to the cocking sled. Inspect to ensure all of the tuning string remains in the pulley grooves and that the cables remain in their respective cam grooves during this operation. Monitor the cam ports alignment with their respective ports in the frame. Continue to slowly crank until the front or rear cam ports align with the ports in the frame. Insert the cam pin into the cam ports when they align with the frame ports. It is likely that the front cam ports will align before the rear cam ports. When they do, you may insert the cam pins into the cam port and then continue to crank until the rear cam ports align with the frame. In some instance, you may need to adjust the tensioning screws in the cam to get all the cam ports to align. When both tuning pins are inserted, you may relieve the tension on the winch by moving the blue winch release button forward and then by slowly cranking in the reverse direction to let out tension. When the tension is removed from the tuning string, it can be removed and replaced with a new bowstring. After ensuring that the new bowstring is properly installed and all strands are nested within the pulley grooves, you may again use the cocking winch to add minor tension to the bowstring. Turn the crank handle slowly and try turning the cam pins to determine if they are loose. Remove the loose cam pin and continue to crank until the other cam pin is able to turn in the port. Remove the other cam pin. At this point, you may now relieve tension by moving the blue winch switch forward as you put a little tension on the crank handle. At this point, you may now crank the handle in reverse, maintaining your thumb on the blue release switch until the cocking winch is loose and ready to be stored away. The crossbow is now pre-tensioned. If additional tension is desired, alternate tensioning each screw until the anchor is a quarter of the way up the tensioning screw, until you reach the desired amount of pre-tension. Do not over-torque the anchors to the extreme end of their tensioning capability. Doing so may damage the anchor or the tensioning screws, leading to property damage or severe injury, which could result in the loss of life. The tensioning screws are designed to be tensioned to the point where the anchors just make contact with the end of the cam channel.